I don't often make videos revolving around Twitter drama. It's not really like an important thing for me. I generally find it pretty petty, and unless there's like a serious issue going on, I typically avoid it. Um, Now I've done it a few times. One of the big ones being when some dumb fuck on Twitter, or a bunch of dumb fucks on Twitter, decided to accuse Peter Coffin of being a pedophile with very little evidence, and then proceeded to go after my friend Lexi. So I made a video on it. And there was also the time I ratioed Keemstar. But that's not really on Twitter drama. That's more political leaning, and you can't blame me for making a video on me absolutely blowing Keemstar the fuck out on Twitter, ratioing him multiple times as he has a mental breakdown, malding over me. Like, you guys can't blame me for that one, but I'm talking about leftist Twitter drama. Whew. Where to start? How about this? So a couple days ago, I was streaming some Dead Space 1. Fantastic game, very, very fun, having a great time, things are good. And I have an old friend of mine named Cinny come into my chat. Now, to give a little bit of background, Cinny and I were best friends for years. I became friends with Cinny back way before I got into politics or anything like that. Me and Cinny just played a lot of Fortnite, a lot of video games, stuff like that. And this is back when I was like, I wasn't a reactionary anymore, but I was sort of like an apolitical liberal again after discovering Destiny and getting the more fashy ideas flushed out of my system. And when I got into politics, my channel was very small, and um, Cinny was not cool with me getting into politics, to say the least. We actually had a lot of falling outs over Cinny not wanting me to pursue politics, saying it's going to fail, saying that they don't like my political content, that it's boring, that it's just saying it's a bad idea to do it. And despite that, I persisted and I continued forward. Onward and onward and onward, and I am where I am now. And sometime around the time I was at like 5,000, 6,000 subs, I started to actually get Cinny to get on board with the whole politics thing. And I'm not going to give every detail of the story because it's mostly irrelevant to the events that we're talking about here and what I'm leading it into. But Cinny ended up, due to, in part, my fault for not really like explaining leftism much to them, falling in line or falling into friendships with some undesirable people on Twitter. At first, it was the Wokescolds, the people that were relentlessly harassing ContraPoints back when the drama against her was the worst. And I managed to pull Cinny out of that, which is good. But then I let my guard down, and they ended up getting in with the tankies, and that ended up devolving our friendship until I ended up deciding to cut it off when they started engaging in denial of the Uyghur genocide being propped up and committed by the Chinese government. That was the last straw for me. Fucking spreading doubts and soft denial, but denial nonetheless, of the Uyghur genocide. That was where I drew the line. So after that, Cinny got very upset with me and said I was slandering them and wanted to debate me. And I was doing a gaming stream, and I didn't really want to do a debate, but I was like, fuck it, I'll bring them on. And they were like, why are you telling people I denied the Uyghur genocide? I'm like, okay, do you think it's a thing? And they say, well, yeah. So I say, okay. And I bring up an example of something that they're doing, such as there was a report that came out from a survivor of these camps talking about how they would get hit or electrocuted with a cattle prod if they took too long to use the bathroom or weren't working fast enough in the camps. And Cinny responded saying, well, that's probably Western propaganda. And basically did the cop-out take of a lot of the information is CIA or Western propaganda, right? So just the most, like, Weasley way of denying the Uyghur genocide, right? And we ended up debating back and forth. My chat wanted to kill themselves because Cindy was being very, very dumb. And I finished the debate, ended stream, things went well. But after that, this group of people on Twitter, this like tanky conglomerate of people that Cindy had befriended on Twitter, began tweeting at me, calling me a liberal mostly, or saying I'm not a real anarchist and all sorts of dumb shit. And at first I sort of ignored it because or I would quote tweet it to make fun of it because their comments towards me were so unbelievably stupid. But it kept on, like, continuing and getting worse and worse and worse and worse till the point where I had tankies just spamming my DMs with dumb shit, spamming my replies, and I don't know if they have I don't know if they have a Discord or something. I have no fucking idea. And there were anarchists doing it too. I should clarify, it wasn't just the tankies. The anarchists were doing it too, and I'll get into a minute why. We'll get into it a little bit later. And now currently, just to give you an update on where we're at, I have been having to block these people for the last day incessantly. Because it went from them just kind of poking fun at me, which was fine. Like I'm fine with that. Like, cool. Then they started sending me my parents' address and saying they were going to burn down my house and or blow it up. I got dozens of these messages from tankies. And I would click on their profiles, and they would all be... And some of them were anarchists, by the way. Some of them were anarchists, but mostly tankies. And they all had, like, 15-year-old trans cat girl, tanky, MLM, Stalinist, what have you, in their bios. What you expect from these types of people on Twitter, which is unfortunate because, these are the people I try to advocate for. And to be fair, most of the shit that I was getting wasn't from people saying this stuff. This is still certainly the minority. I've been getting hundreds of hate DMs for the last couple days, but I have received a few dozen death threats with my old address with where my parents live in it. Pretty fucking cringe. Happened with the Surfs and Bad Empanada as well. Not surprised at all. So that's the more extreme thing. But just to give you an idea of the insanity of the people that I've been dealing with, let's go ahead and take just an absolutely glorious look at the current Xander Hall derangement syndrome conspiracy theory from the tankies. Because, oh my god, has it progressed to pandemic levels. This is from 5 hours ago. Given how much of a sheltered shitlib at Xander Hall TV is, wouldn't surprise me if Alex Haley was a pen name. What super woke shitlib wouldn't want to cosplay as the author of Roots as a pseudonym? What a Yas Queen performatively woke pen name. Surprised no one else tried it. And this same person continued to basically double, triple, quadruple down on the idea that my name, my actual name, which by the way, I make public because Kiwi Farms doxed me a year ago, found my voter ID online for Florida, because in Florida your voter ID is public because Florida is awful, and that's how they were able to find my address. I mean, I was very open about my... I've explained all of this in my story, my parental situation, right? That's how they found me. So, yes, my name is Alex Haley. I was, in fact, somewhat named after the writer of Roots. My mom did like Roots, and she liked the name Alex Haley, and it played a small part in my naming, okay? But that's more or less where it ends. My mom was originally going to name me Xander, and that's why I decided to go with Xander at the beginning of my name and whatnot. But unimportant. Yes, Alex Haley is my real name. Fucking crazy conspiracy theorist. Now, I want to very quickly, before I move into like the main segment of this video, I want to acknowledge the reasonable, valid criticisms that I got. Because while the vast majority of the shit I've been getting on Twitter for the last few days has been unhinged morons and LARPers calling me a shitlib, because, well, basically every reason that they would list was just wrong. They claim that I'm like a social democrat, or that I'm not a real anarchist because I am in favor of a pragmatic transitionary state between where we are now to like my ideal anarchist society, because I see that as being a more realistic way of achieving that world, which I'll get into in a minute. For those that disagree with that, I'll get into it in a minute. A lot of them said that I am not very good. Why did you block Zoomer Nation? She seemed reasonable for the most part. I've debated Zoomer Nation multiple times, back when she was Bernie or Bust, and then pro Wokescold. I've crushed Zoomer Nation in every debate I've had with her. I've debated her like, what, 4 times now? And then for the last 2 months, she's spammed my DMs at least once a week. I have a fucking line of unanswered DMs from Zoomer Nation, and then they like jumped on the bandwagon of hating on me after playing nice for the longest time. So yes, I blocked Zoomer Nation because they're a fucking idiot, okay? Alright. I wish them nothing but the best, but holy fuck, so goddamn annoying. Now, valid criticism number 1. Actually, this is really the major valid criticism that I got. I'll encompass it all into one thing. I am not ultra read up on theory and not super knowledgeable on a lot of concepts, phraseology, and history around leftism. There are a lot of historical events I'm not aware of. There are a lot of theoretical leftist concepts I'm not aware of. And there are a lot of historical leftist figures that I'm not aware of, or not super well read on. I'm not Vosh. I've not read all theory, sadly. And my response to that is, I have been a leftist for a little over a year. And I have read 2 bits of theory so far. I know, 2 bits. I know, not enough. I know, not enough. But it's somewhere to start. I listened to them on audiobook. I didn't actually read them because I'm terrible reading. I'm terrible at reading. I listened to the entirety of the Communist Manifesto on stream, audiobook, read by Sargon of Akkad. Took like 4 or 5 hours. And I listened to an audiobook of The Conquest of Bread. Now, I'm aware that these bits of theory are very surface level. Communist Manifesto is meant to be like an intro to leftist theory, like a very watered down, easy to digest sort of intro to it. So nothing really advanced there, understand. Not really substantial for learning theory. And the Bread book is a decent anarchist, a bit of anarchist theoretical literature. Pretty cool. I didn't learn all that much from either of the books. I paid attention. I did. But for the most part, most of what I learned from that, the one new thing that I learned from both of those was from the Bread book, or The Conquest of Bread. And it was a well-explained distinction between personal property and private property. I believe the way Kropotkin worded it was that the hammer and the anvil are just as necessary to the blacksmith as his bed and the shirt on his back. Something along those lines. It's been a few months since I listened to it, but it goes on a bit more, but that was a pretty good explanation of the difference between personal and private property, because at the time, I was pretty sure that leftists didn't want to take away everybody's like personal possessions, right? Like your home, your bed, like things that you don't want to part with, right? But it was nice having that confirmed, and that was a thing that I learned. But other than that, most of what I heard from those, audiobooks were things that I already knew or understood being reworded in ways that I hadn't heard it before, and just having a better, like way of wording those ideas that I already agreed and understood. Now, is there more theory I want to listen to and read? Absolutely. Plenty. Lots of it, okay? Definitely. But I'm sorry, I'm not a robot. That takes time. I'm a human being. I'm very, very busy. And I'm not the best reader. And I also get distracted very easily. So listening to audiobooks takes me a while. So sorry. Can't do that instantly, all right? But that leads us into the actual segment I wanted to get into today, and how my experiences over the last, well, my entire online breadtubing career, what I have learned through this whole experience. I need you all to understand that unless you are a fairly prominent leftist figure, you will most likely not be able to relate to me. And I'm going to have to ask you guys to try your best, even if you haven't experienced this, to empathize with me on this. Because before I was like a larger breadtuber, when I would hear people complain about this kind of stuff, I was like, it's not that bad. Like you're overreacting. It can't be that bad, right? Bear with me. I want you to imagine that this entire circle and everything within it is the left. I'm talking leftists, not liberals, not sock dems, and not socialists. Leftists. Okay? What the fuck? What? Come on. There we go. This is the left, contained entirely in this giant green blob. All right? As you can see, the vast majority, the vast majority of leftists in the world and even online are not what these things are that we're about to get into. There's a difference between... So there is a difference between leftists and socialists? Did I say socialists? I meant social democrats and democratic socialists. I apologize. Social democrats, democratic socialists. Depending on where you draw the line of where leftism begins, it's arbitrary, but it's up to your own interpretation, right? Let's talk about leftists, all right? Not libs. I do believe that everything inside these three circles, which we'll be labeling in a moment, are a vast, vast minority of the left, both online and in real life. This is not a to-scale image, all right? These circles are only as big as they are for the sake of visual convenience, okay? There are three groups of people in the left that I have encountered over the last year and a half as a breadtuber that have made the left feel very, very bitter, disgusting, and unpleasant. And I know for a fact, from the outside looking in, make the left look god fucking awful. and do nothing because of their behavior in helping the left grow and succeed. The first group we're going to talk about are class reductionists. That is probably spelled wrong. I don't give a fuck. We're going to talk about class reductionists first. We'll go ahead and color this in red. All right? I imagine most of you guys know what class reductionists are. But let me explain it anyway. It's spelled correctly? Hell yeah, Xandergod. Class reductionists, to simplify it, are people who believe that most problems of inequality in society are the fault of capitalism and economic inequality. And that if you get rid of capitalism and you eliminate economic inequality, then other forms of bigotry and oppression will fizzle out and fade away. A lot of their biggest excuses or reasonings for this is that economic inequality is the main way in which, for example, black people in this country are oppressed. Black people tend to be poor in America. Pretty fucking bad. Obviously, this is stupid. There are still many other ways to oppress black people, even if we get rid of capitalism. So, class reductionists also like to accuse anybody who talks about social issues too much for their liking to be a liberal. They call it liberal idpol. They're very quick to accuse any leftist that talks too much about social issues a liberal. They tend to be Bernie or bust. They tend to, oh god, and this is the most annoying thing. A subsect of these people are faux populists. Are you guys aware of Kim Iverson or Matt Walsh? I don't know if you've heard these names before. These people claim to be leftists or like on the far left, and yet or Crystal Ball. Crystal Ball is also kind of like this too, but to a lesser degree. They'll basically tout and congratulate fascists and white nationalists and Nazguls as long as they're economically progressive or economically left-leaning. Very fucking annoying. These people are really fucking annoying. They are god-awful pieces of shit. They also tend to be ex-fascists or people who would probably be fascists right now if they'd fallen down the alt-right pipeline instead of the lefty pipeline. They're usually pretty young, edgy like types that just fell down that rabbit hole and you know, they wanted an edgy thing to be a part of, right? Class reductionists, fucking awful. I've had good class reductionist talking point. Hypers, if you've heard this one. Xander Hall basically Destiny, right? No? I have my issues with Destiny, but Destiny is not a faux populist class reductionist. No. Okay. Hypers, if you've heard this one before. Marx would think trans people's gender pronouns are bourgeoisie identity politics. If you've been on class reductionist Twitter, you've seen that one. I know I have. These people are awful. For the left, for the world, and I don't like them. They're cringe. Next, we're going to talk about... Nope, we want black. Black is best. I am black, apparently. Because Alex Haley. We're going to talk about Wokescolds. I've talked about Wokescolds before, right? You guys are aware of this? I assume you are. Now, there isn't a lot of crossover. There's a bit of an exaggeration here on how much crossover there are between Wokescolds and class reductionists. They tend to be pretty diametrically opposed to each other. They generally really hate each other. In fact, Wokescolds will often accuse those they don't like of being class reductionists. Regardless of that, though, class reductionists do love engaging in Wokescolding hypocritically. So there's crossover, and that's what this represents. Wokescolds are basically, for the long and short of it, people who try to outwoke everybody else on the left. You rarely see them attacking other like fascists or right-wingers because they most of their ideas and their wokeness are performative. They're meant to sort of try to outwoke everybody else and come off as being the most woke, right? And they'll oftentimes engage in, purity testing and gatekeeping. And they will oftentimes engage in abusive behavior towards those they don't like. And due to the fact that they are very obsessed with keeping the left very small and like a nice little club, they oftentimes target their harassment and abuse at leftist content creators or breadtubers. More often than not, people like ContraPoints. As we all know, it was Wokescolds who endlessly bullied ContraPoints into falling back into alcoholism, depression for months on end, and they continue to harass her to this day. Most Wokescolds are just libs, TBH. Yeah, but we're talking about the ones that are on the left. Once again, clarifying, this is not the majority of the left. They are a extremely loud minority. But the fact that they're extremely loud makes up for the fact they're the minority, because it still makes the left look bad. And if someone looks in from the outside on the left, these are what they see. They don't see all of this, which we'll get into in a minute. They are very fucking awful. I've talked plenty about Wokescolds before, so let's go ahead and jump to the final one. Tankies. What is a tanky? Well, there are a lot of definitions of tankies, and if I'm being honest, most of the time, if somebody's a tanky, like they're just more of like an authoritarian leftist, and their brand of leftism just tends to land on the side of authoritarianism, that's fine. I don't really care all that much. Like, as long as they aren't fucking with me, and we mostly agree on all the same pragmatic goals, then I don't give a shit what they believe. With class reductionists and Wokescolds, their ideas are fundamentally incompatible with all contemporary leftists, like pragmatic, now in the moment goals that we're trying to pursue. Class reductionists tend to play the like faux populism, like, oh yeah, well, immigration is bad because it takes jobs from the working class. Yeah, these immigrants are taking jobs from the working class, right? Obviously, these ideas are bad for us. Wokescolds engage in rhetoric constantly that harasses leftist advocates and makes the left look bad. Tankies, on the other hand, can just be tankies, do their own thing, have their own ideas, talk about theory and what they prefer, and as long as they aren't fucking with everybody, they don't really cause any harm. Which is why I didn't really go as hard on tankies in the past as I did against class reductionists and Wokescolds. Vanderhall, tankies killed more than fascists. Mao, 75 million kills. Hitler, 17 million kills. Nice meme. That's not what I'm talking about when I say tankies. I'm talking about modern day tankies, okay? People whose political leftist ideology aligns with that of authoritarian leftism, broadly speaking. There are many types of tankies. The problem is, Most tankies don't do that. Most tankies don't just kind of like have their ideas and that's it. Tankies, and so do class reductionists and Wokescolds, there's a lot of crossover here, but it's usually tankies, are unbelievably fucking obnoxious. For starters, they are the people who unironically say that if you haven't read enough theory, then you're a lib. That's what I've been getting for the last few days. And it got so bad, I just wanted these people off my back that I am now taking the lib pledge. It's happening. I'm taking the lib pledge. My ideas are not changing whatsoever. My rhetoric and my philosophy, nothing. None of my opinions are changing. I'm just going to call myself a liberal until the tankies fuck off. Because you'll notice the tankies never actually go after liberals, like actual liberals. They go after leftists they don't like, and call them liberals all day. And it's very annoying. I'm tired of these people sending me death threats with my parents' address in DMs and speculating about how my name is fake, I guess. It's very, very obnoxious. Don't worry, I banned Cindy. It's all good. Very fucking obnoxious. So that's what we're doing. Calling myself a rad lib until the tankies fuck off and go harass some other breadtuber. That's the plan. Not actually a liberal, though. Want to clarify, the distinction that I make between liberal and leftist is those that want to keep capitalism and maybe reform it, if at all, and those that want to abolish capitalism. Now, leftism and leftist ideologies go further than that, but that is a very simple, straight to the point distinction that I think is very reasonable. And under that definition, I want capitalism gone. I want it to be a thing of the past. I don't like capitalism. Makes me a leftist. So, yeah. Reformism is not leftism? Exactly. That's why I just said that libs want to reform capitalism. But tankies do tend to do this kind of thing, where they go really hard on gatekeeping leftism, and it's actually classist and ableist what tankies engage in. You see, not everybody, especially in the proletariat, is capable of so sock them arc. Guys, I'm not actually a liberal. I'm just going to call myself one and still say and do the exact same shit and believe the exact same shit. It's just a meme to get the fucking tankies off my back. I feel like I've said it 1,000 times. But it is classist because most proletarian people do not have the time, money, or energy due to the fact that they're wage slaves under the oppressive system of capitalism to bury themselves in theory. It's a unironically classist perspective. It is. Going even further than that, it's also ableist because there's a lot of people on the left who are in some way disabled, in which they cannot sit for long periods of time reading and or listening to unbelievably boring dry theory, which, yes, I said it, theory is unbelievably boring. It is extremely fucking boring. It'll never not be boring. It is a struggle and torture to listen to, but once you've done it, then you get to act like you're all high and mighty above everybody else because, ooh, look how many 200-year-old books written by dead dudes I've read that you haven't. This makes me a better leftist, and so I get to look down on you and call you a radlib. Depends on the theory, TBH. I'm sorry, Lexi, but nothing will ever make theory fun for me. Unless it's like, unless there's a way to distill the ideas from theory into a much more easy to consume, non-fucking dry, boring, substance. I don't know. But some people like theory, I'm sure. It is both, as I said, it is both classist and ableist, so yeah. Now, obviously, there is a lot... Ooh, come on. There is a lot of obvious crossover here. You know, you got the crossover of all these people. And of course, many people are both class reductionists, Wokescolds, and tankies. I've run into these people as well. But there's one thing that all these people here have in common. One awful thing they all have in common. I don't have enough space to write it. But they are all LARPing dipshits that make the left look bad. When I made that joke tweet about how I was going to call myself a liberal to get the tankies off my back, it got hundreds of likes in only a couple hours. Mostly from my liberal and SocDem friends. And I got a lot of very friendly DMs from SocDems and other kinds of liberals that were extremely nice, saying, I'm really sorry you're dealing with all this shit. Bastiat, for example, messaged me when he noticed how much hate I was getting and was like, why are other lefties attacking you? He was like genuinely confused why this was happening. He just didn't understand it. Like, why the fuck would lefties just be going after me? He was confused, and I explained to him, well, it's the left, you know, it's how it is. And basically, I had tons of SocDems and liberals talking to me, being extremely, extremely kind, welcoming, and charitable. Meanwhile, I am getting death threats from tankies and other leftists in my DMs, sending me my parents' address, telling me they're going to burn down my parents' house and kill my parents and my dogs. Now, I thought maybe these were like Kiwi Farms Nazis, like doing a psyop, but these accounts were multiple years old. These were like either these were really dedicated, these were dozens of really dedicated Nazis, or this shit was legit. Yeah. How's that look from the outside looking in? If you are a lib, or let's imagine imagine that you're a lib or a centrist or a fascist or anything like that. I want you to imagine how it looks from the outside looking in when you see how fucking cancerous a lot of the left is. It's a minority, a very small minority. I would be safe in saying that these groups collectively maybe make up 15 to 25% of the left. They are certainly the minority. And yet, they are very loud. What are these people in the green here? The people outside of the brain-dead dipshit Venn diagram. This is the rest of the left. This is the rest of leftists. People who are chill, who just advocate for their ideas, don't gatekeep, don't bully or abuse people online, just do their thing. That are welcoming, chill, you know, cool lefties. This is the vast majority of the left. Problem is, it's pretty hard to be loudly kind and welcoming. Kind of difficult to do that. Can't be loudly kind and welcoming. It's the people who are assholes that are loud assholes. So you notice these people. Like Lexi, for example. When people think of the left, people don't think of somebody like Lexi, who's a chill anarchist that is very nice and welcoming. And when she does tell people to read theory, it's like, hey, look, here's some theory I would recommend so you could learn more about this. No. When people think of the left, they think of rapid regulatory. That's what they think of. That is what they think of, which is unfortunate. Now, in light of this, I think it's best that this part of the left buries this part of the left in obscurity. I think that's the best idea. And I'm going to start by purging every single one of them from my community. I will be insta-banning class reductionists, Wokescolds, and tankies. No questions asked. Just Thanos snap. I don't want them in my comments. I don't want them in my chat. I don't want them posting on my Reddit or in my Discord. And I don't want them using my platform to have others see them. I don't want people that aren't leftists to think about the left and see this. I don't want it. We shouldn't be comfy with class reductionists. I feel like if we're gaining more power in the coming days of 2021, Great Depression post-Trump. I agree with that, the real Dango Bangle. That's why I'm going to purge the class reductionists too. Non-tanky MLs are good though. I don't think I've met any non-tanky MLs, but sure. Sure. Yeah. I have dealt with quite the onslaught of bullshit. Now, granted, it's going to be very hard for basically any of you to self-insert to my position because you haven't dealt with it. I couldn't do it back when I was much smaller, but hopefully you can try, because I want you to imagine that you are getting dozens of messages per day from 15-year-old Rose Twitter trans girls with a Stalin avatar and MLM or Stalinist or ML, Marxist-Leninism, Stalinism, Trotskyism, Maoism, Dangism, Voshism, Bidenism, Trumpism, Ted Cruzism, messaging you on Twitter, sending you your address or your ex address, telling you that they're going to burn down your house and kill your parents and your dogs. So I'm getting dozens of those messages. Kind of reminds me of when the lolicons were spamming child porn at me. Were you ever a Wokescold or a class reductionist? No, not really. No comment, chick. Welcome to the stream, by the way. I should probably mod you, shouldn't I? There you go. Cool. Yeah. It's kind of fucking tough. It kind of makes you feel like the left is very shitty. It sucks. And right now in YouTube chat, I have tankies who are gloating about it, saying, haha, cope. It's like, dude, people are sending me my parents' address and saying they're going to burn down my house and kill my family. And I'm talking about how that's bad. And that's a cope? Are you kidding me? Are you trying to prove horseshoe theory right? Because this is like word for word the kind of shit I heard from Nazis on kiwi farms. Unironically. And you're leftists, or at least you claim to be. What are you doing? Anyway, that's more or less all I had to say. There's a lot of fucking dumbasses in my community, I imagine, that I'll have to purge. Fine with that. Most of them are probably not worth having in my community anyway, but yeah. All that said, those are my main complaints to the left. That is a summary of the Twitter drama that's been going on, and that is what I want to do about it. Just fucking bury them. Most of these people, the most relevance that they have is their like 1,000 follower Twitter accounts max. So, hopefully you enjoy.